2018 was the summer of the fridge, and I'm pretty over it. Laura, you might be asking, what in the hell does that mean? Alright, key terms. This has been covered before, and if you've managed to find my channel, there's a good chance you already know what's up, but we've all got to start on the same page, so let's see how fast I can do this. Women in refrigerators refers to a pattern in comics where lady superheroes are often killed, tortured, or depowered in order to progress plot lines that aren't their own. Then fan, now writer Gail Simone coined the phrase in 1999 in reference to Green Lantern Volume 3, number 54, where our intrepid hero returns home to find his girlfriend dead, stuffed in his refrigerator. More recently, the discourse around this trope has been expanded to include other forms of media, and the term is often shortened to the much cuter and less unwieldy fridging. A character who has been fridged has been killed off essentially in order to move the plot along, usually by providing motivation for a male character. And apparently, that's what Hollywood had up its sleeve in 2018. Mako Mori went down so Jake would get off his ass, Killmonger's GF got sucker shot just in case you had any doubts that dude's bad news, Gamora went splat so Thanos could be not just motivated but sympathetic. The Millennium Falcon got retroactively co-opted into a giant flying meat locker, Vanessa took a bullet to the head so Deadpool would be really sad, and of course Pam got flatlined in a montage so David could learn about father- Wait. How did that get in here? Searching is a f***ing triumph, and I did not come here to see this cinematic trailblazer dragged through the goddamn mud. Hi, I'm Laura, and it's been brought to my attention that my faves are problematic. Let's talk about the summer of the fridge. Alright, yeah, so we're talking about a trope, and if the Manic Pixie Dream Girl discourse circa 2012 and, oh wow, apparently 2018 has taught us anything, it's that we gotta be careful with this whack-a-mole crap. It's pretty easy for this to devolve into, I spy some big earrings. Well, actually, and before you know it, you're arguing about whether a character does or does not fit into a made-up TV tropes box, instead of maybe having a chat about how, like, yeah, she's got her own wants and needs and bangs who she wants to bang because she wants to bang them, and that's pretty awesome, but she's still one of only a handful of named female characters, and her main function to the plot is as a barometer for whether or not the protagonist is a decent person. Maybe she can be both, and it would be good to have that chat. So for those of you already in the comments with your, well, actually, Linda was more of a kick the dog than a woman in a refrigerator, sure, sounds good. Whatever you want to call it, we agree that she's a woman whose death indicates that she's a plot device more than a character. I have a problem with that, and we're gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna keep calling it fridging for the sake of linguistic economy, and honestly because it's fun. Take a stroll with me into the industrial walk-in cooler that was the summer of 2018. But Laura, what about when men die in stories? Well, wouldn't you know it, 2018 gave us a great self-contained contrast in one movie. Of course, there's Mako. Oh, Mako. You deserved better. But we've also got Amara's dad getting squished in flashback. He only exists in relation to Amara, and he's only around long enough to die so she can feel some sort of way about it. He's not a character. He's a device. Yeah, that's not nothing. But I do want to point out something that separates the way Amara's father's death affects her from the way Mako's affects Jake. See, Mako's death motivates Jake. Where he's been sort of coasting up to this point, just here because it's better than prison, I guess, watching Mako die and failing to save her gets him some skin in the game and turns him into cool teamwork role model guy. Amara, on the other hand, well, it's a little more complicated. The incident that killed her father does fuel her fire, but it's more about refusing to ever feel so helpless again.
I'm not gonna be stuck waiting for someone else to come save my ass. Not like before.
Than it is about sticking it to the big bad what squished her dad. And in terms of specific narrative function, this memory is at least as much an obstacle as it is a motivation. This is the rabbit she chases and the wall she puts up that keep her from being able to drift good. A man in the wake of the death of a woman is a badass on a mission. A woman processing the death of a man is too emotional to get shit done. Does that mean Amara's dad didn't actually get fridged? I don't care. But it's an interesting comparison. And hey, what do you know? 2018 also gave us the most straightforwardly fridged man I've ever seen in The Spy Who Dumped Me, where Mila Kunis's boyfriend uses his dying breath to give her a MacGuffin and a rendezvous point so hijinks and badassery can ensue. Now, this does get a bit complicated later because it turns out he was a grade A asshole and also has been alive the whole time. Surprise! But we'll get back to that. The point for now is, it's not impossible to find instances of men who die in such a way as to function more as plot devices than as people. Maybe you can think of lots of them, and maybe you have a problem with that. Who would I be to tell you that you're wrong? But here's why I, personally, am not so bothered by it. Volume. The world is not lacking for male characters with lives of their own, clear objectives, and heaps of plot agency. You can probably find at least 5 of them easy in the same movie as your fridged dude. When we, the internet feminists, get in a huff about fridging, we're talking about it as one of the many, many ways that a critical mass of female characters, even major named female characters, are turned into objects, ideas, or plot devices, usually to support the arc of a male protagonist. We're talking about one specific instance, but we're talking about it as a piece of a larger pattern. That's the point of a trope, to put a name on the pattern so we can point it out and get other people looking for it and talking about it. But Laura, male characters actually die at epidemic rates because they're forced into dangerous lines of work like action flicks and war movies so they can protect women's privilege to stay safe and comfortable in romantic comedies and period dramas. Hey, look at that! 2018 also gave us a movie that killed literally half its beloved cast of characters almost totally indiscriminately.
No resurrections this time.
Okay, so what's really interesting about Gamora is that she's actually pretty intent on dying from the beginning.
If things go wrong, if Thanos gets me, I want you to promise me you'll kill me.
And with that question of volume in mind, there's nothing wrong with that. Infinity War has the MCU at its highest concentration of lady superheroes to date, but there's still a statistically significant minority. Killing off Gamora, the only Guardian who isn't a dude, has repercussions for representation no matter how she dies. But that doesn't mean that getting splatted by Thanos has the same effect as stabbing herself or talking Peter into shooting her would have. If Gamora succeeds in killing herself, she is a character with a fully realized arc. She joins the ranks of characters in this story who sacrificed their lives trying to save the world. But getting splatted by Thanos denies Gamora the nobility, the agency granted to Heimdall, Loki, and Vision. Her death has nothing to do with her, and everything to do with Thanos. Gamora is not only more useful to the story dead than alive. She's more useful to the story as the Mad Titan's daughter than as a guardian of the mother-forking galaxy. But Infinity War is also really important to this conversation for showing us that women don't have to be turned into plot devices by their deaths. Scarlet Witch dies because literally half the population of the universe dies. Moreover, she dies after being plucked from the chorus to become one of the main players in the story, arguably the main player apart from Thanos.
Why was she up there all this time?
She dies as a rather nihilistic conclusion to her own genuinely heartbreaking arc, and she goes down swinging just as hard as her male counterparts. If you're in a world where life or death stakes are, for better or worse, the thing, then yes, women are going to die, and yes, their deaths are going to affect other characters and the plot at large. But no matter what repercussions a Scarlet Witchless world has for the surviving Avengers, our girl went out more like a character than a corpse, and that matters. That matters.
Out of ashes.
Look, I'm at a loss for even a good Thermian argument for why we lost Vanessa. Wade needed to have a death wish? But this is just a movie full of suicide attempts, if that's all it is, so Vanessa becomes this bizarre angel spirit guide who periodically shows up to force the plot to go in directions it has no reason to go otherwise and tell us that in this world, you're not allowed to die unless you died doing something noble?
Your heart's not in the right place.
So it's just a win-win for Wade to trade his life for Russell's, something which Russell basically knows.
I've been trying to make this happen for a while.
But it's still a life-alteringly touching gesture for Wade to get exactly what he wanted, and for some reason Wade's not mad that Cable dragged him back to this life and took him away from Vanessa. What is this garbage, and why in the name of the flying spaghetti monster did we have to shoot Vanessa for it? Screenwriter Rhett Reese said in an interview with Vulture,
I think at some point somebody just said, you know, Deadpool kind of works best when he's had everything taken away from him, when he suffers. So the thought was maybe we can really engender great suffering for him by having his line of work be the thing that cost Vanessa her life.
What does that have to do with anything? Look, I'm not nitpicking plot holes because my problem with Deadpool 2 is that it's logically inconsistent. I have much more interesting things to take issue with, like the fact that tortured man depressed because dead girlfriend dead is apparently, in the year of our Lord 2018, such an accepted premise that the screenwriters themselves didn't notice that it was adding nothing to their movie. Deadpool's so-called suffering doesn't consistently make sense as the movie's driving force, or we wouldn't need Vanessa to pull a Morgan Freeman. But I guess that's where we're at with this shit. You put it in there because, well, we already kidnapped her. Guess we gotta kill her off this time, you know, raise the stakes and whatnot. Oh, and I guess we were supposed to know that the one thing from the post-credits rigmarole that definitely happened is that Vanessa is alive again now, by Reese's own admission, as a pure ass-covering afterthought.
We always had in our back pocket that we could always bring Vanessa back if necessary, so we ran with that. And maybe that's a sexist thing, I don't know. And maybe some women will have an issue with that, I don't know. I don't think it'll be a large concern, but it didn't even really occur to us.
Just as how and why a character dies matters, how and why they come back matters. Vanessa and Gamora are both still dead when their credits roll. Vanessa has to sit the entire story out until Wade can defrost her after literally everything has already happened. Since Infinity War is the first of 2 parts, there's still some sort of chance for Gamora. A lot of deaths are going to get reversed in Endgame, and we don't know yet whether or how Gamora might be one of them. But based on the way her death is treated, it seems unlikely that we'll find out she, faked it and has been hiding out and influencing the story behind the scenes this whole time. Like Vanessa, Gamora died at the hands of another character who has more plot agency than she does. And if she comes back, it will, like Vanessa, be at the hands of another character who has more plot agency than she does. Look, again, it's not absolutely nothing to get these characters back. Having them around gives, or would give, these franchises a chance to treat them better in future movies. In Gamora's case, maybe even to start right away. But that doesn't erase what was done to them here. It's just damage control. So how does this work with our impermanently fridged gentleman? Twist in the third act, Mila Kunis's boyfriend, this is actually a movie with characters. Her name is Audrey and her not dead boyfriend is Drew. So Drew has been alive this whole time, and he's a bad guy. Between this revelation and the less savory memories of him that have been recontextualized in his absence, he goes from an inciting incident to the human form of Audrey's personal doubts and insecurities that she has to overcome.
Oh, that's right. You never finish anything.
Hey, there's that thing about dead men being obstacles instead of motivation again. Weird. But what's really crucial about this is that this guy functions in the story as a character doing stuff. His death, it turns out, was his choice, his reappearance at this moment is his choice, and he actively influences what's left of the plot through his actions. Even though this is very much Audrey's story, and Drew's presence in it is limited to his effect on her, he affects her by being a person who acts like a person. Vanessa, on the other end of the spectrum, affects Wade's story specifically by being distinctly unable to do anything a human would do. That's a big old difference right there. Alright, I've stalled long enough. I think we have to talk about searching now. Pam is not a person. She's a plot device. There is no argument to the contrary. She is introduced in vignettes and killed in a montage because it's important for David's backstory. She's dead long before she would even have the opportunity to do anything to impact the plot. She's in the fridge. Case closed. But, well, if I wasn't gonna leave goddamn Deadpool 2 at that, I'm sure as hell not gonna miss a chance to give one of the best movies of 2018 a little analytical love. And I'd like to call to the stand one Mr. Jonathan Wick. John Wick and David Kim both lose their wives to cancer, or at least probably cancer, before the 7-minute mark. Both are catapulted into movie-worthy stories by their failure to process their grief. And both eventually take all the bad guys down and walk off into some sort of sunset. Okay, let's unpack that. Let me start by saying I fucking love John Wick. This movie upset the way Hollywood action is made in a way that desperately needed to be done. It set the bar in a place where shaky cam and rapid cuts between very short takes are a choice. Again, thank God. We are living in a post-John Wick world, my friends, and it is a world that is better for being so. Jeez, even Deadpool 2. I've been hard on Deadpool 2, but the action is excellent, and John Wick is 100% to thank for that. The Continental is cool as fuck, and the world building in Chapter 2 is 100% my shit, and the trailer for Chapter 3 is John Wick on a horse, and the dogs are fighting. Oh my god, they killed the dog in his first one, and now the dogs are fighting back. John Wick Chapter 3, Revenge of the Dogs. I am very much looking forward to watching this movie. That being said, John Wick is a movie about a man who is very good at shooting his problems in the head, runs into a problem that can't be shot in the head, and is given a way to solve it by shooting people in the head.
When Ellen died, I lost everything until that dog arrived on my doorstep. An opportunity to grieve unalone. And your son took that from me.
John Wick is a movie that wants you to know that shooting your problems in the head is awesome. I mean, it pays some lip service to how, like, being a contract killer is morally wrong and karma's probably gonna bite you in the ass.
We are cursed, you and I.
But sorry, buddy, you're gonna have to speak up. I can't hear you over the Marilyn Manson. Okay, look, John Wick is not a movie that was made to talk about grief. John Wick is a movie that uses grief because it's enough of a setup to make this happen. John Wick is a movie made by, and honestly for, badass stuntmen. It's the studio-produced, feature-length equivalent of the shorts stunt performers make in their off time because it's fun to see what you can do when cool-looking action is the only goal, or because we need real footage. Because these kinds of shorts aren't generally shy about the fact that the action is the extent of the point, they tend toward one of three camps in terms of plot setup. Basically ignoring it, importing characters from a recognizable story or franchise, or inventing something kind of ridiculous, super heightened, dare I say, unrealistic.
The movie's about to start. What's going on?
I got the tickets, but there's this doomsday device. Do you want that?
Yeah, nah, he won that in the poker game fair and square, so that's fine. You can leave it. Just bring me the tickets.
Copy that.
All of these options have the effect of signaling to the viewer that, like, we put in enough work to give you something, but you should really just enjoy the fights without worrying too much about it. So, honestly, this movie should have been about a retired assassin who snaps because some randos broke into his house and killed his dog. Like, without the dead wife. We don't need her. Look, I've seen my colleagues put up fights where they flew into a murderous rage because a security guard wouldn't let them into Costco. A dead puppy isn't remotely outside the realm of believability. Have you ever met a dog? And this movie's already basically going there, and I love it.
Because he stole John Wick's car, sir, and killed his dog.
Oh.
Make John Wick just an angry dog dad, you cowards. Okay, fine, video editorialized, whatever. Maybe not everyone's gonna go all the way there with me, and that's fine. But the point is, John Wick didn't go that route. It could have, but it didn't. It went the route of choosing something that feels realistic and relatable, at least in the sense that it seems humanly reasonable that these stakes get this high, this quickly, for this reason. And the result is that this movie doesn't get the luxury of shooing away any questions about the plot by telling you that it's just here for the fight scenes. It is a movie about grief, whether it wants to be or not. And this is a movie that unequivocally says that shooting your grief in the head is the manly way to deal with it. Talking about your feelings isn't awesome. Hurting people is awesome. Searching is also a movie about grief. It is also, arguably, a movie that uses grief as little more than a setup for the cool thing it wants to do. In this case, a mystery unspooled through the eye of a computer. But unlike John Wick, Searching engages David's grief in a way that becomes crucial to what the movie is. Not only are his feelings about losing his wife inextricably linked to his fear of losing his daughter, he has to learn that his inability to process those feelings is inextricably linked to Margot's disappearance in the first place. It isn't a deconstruction deconstruction of the fridging trope specifically, but it does deconstruct the toxically masculine version of grief that is so crucial to why fridging succeeds as such an oft-resorted to plot device. David is less like John Wick than he is like Amara, in that his grief doesn't spur him on to badassery. It stands in the way of his ability to live a life. It's not like David doesn't try to punch his problems in the face, it's just that the result is distinctly, repeatedly not awesome. Searching is a movie about a man unlearning the masculine directive to not have feelings. What deeper feeling is there to have than grief, and how do you talk about grief without a dead body? There is, unfortunately, no way to separate this movie from the piles of dead women in refrigerators that contextualize it. But Searching doesn't tell a story that could be told by spinning the wheel of inciting incidents. It tells a story that could only start with death. And it honors that death by really, honestly saying something with and about it. That's how you use a fucking plot device.
I guess I kind of just, forgot to put my face in this one. Oops.
If you like this video and you want more analysis of the through line of a trope and how that affects representation, you should check out Rowan Ellis's video on the history of queerbaiting. Special thanks to Eric from Curio, who provided the very sassy voice of Rhett Reese. If you haven't seen his Valentine's Day video yet, well, what are you even doing? Music for this video was provided by all of these lovely people, and there's a track list in the description. This is the first video that I get to say was brought to you by the generous support of my wonderful patrons. You too can help me make more and better videos and get cool perks like early access to videos, behind the scenes stuff over at patreon.com/Laura Crone, or you can throw me a one-time tip on coffee. Coffee? I don't know. Coffee. Let's call it coffee.